Get started with the meeting. Most of this meeting is going to be devoted really to getting public comment, but there's a few items of business that the council needs to take up before we start that process. But I would like to welcome everybody for coming tonight. We'd worried earlier on in our process how we were going to get public comment. I don't think that's going to be a problem. So we're glad that all of you are here to share your thoughts about the process. With that, also David Hawk, I wanted to share with other members, had planned to be here, but the General Assembly is in session. He's going to try to be here, so he may be a little bit late. He's very interested in this and wanted me to express his apologies to the group for not being able to be here right this time. I'd also like to say to the committee members, thank you so much for your cooperation and patience in this process of us having to change this meeting. But as you know, I felt we needed to have a larger area where we could support the number of people that had said they'd like to come and speak before the council. So we just kind of reversed things, and this was a date we could get this, and we'll be following up with other business later. Anyway, thank you all for your cooperation and for everyone being here. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Minutes are approved. With that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to, where's Jeff?
Right here.
Oh, okay. Jeff Ackerman, who will explain a little bit about the process tonight, how it's going to work, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay.
I should say, I do feel the need to say one thing. The purpose of this meeting really is to allow public comments from any perspective that people have. I would ask that everyone please be respectful of each other. Whether or not you agree with their position, let's show proper manners and the decorum and so forth so that we can really get through the process. And the other thing I'd ask people to please follow the guidelines that we're going to put out, because we've got a lot of people who want to speak, and we're hoping that everybody that signed up will get a chance to do that. And again, if you didn't get a chance or didn't want to, you can send in written comments, and those will be included in the report. Anyway, thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Chairman Varney. My name is Jeff Ackerman, J-E-F-F-O-C-K-E-R-M-A-N for our court reporter. Welcome to all of you here. We look forward to hearing your comments. A few matters. First of all, this is the Local Advisory Council here. Their job is not to serve as a governing body, not to make decisions about the COPA or anything within the COPA. Their job is to hear from you and report to the Department of Health and the COPA monitor about your input, as well as their own review of the annual report that's been filed by ballot. We want to hear from as many people as possible. Everyone has up to 3 minutes to speak, but no more than that, out of fairness to everybody. Ms. Connect, Judy Connect right here, will hold up a 1-minute warning sign, and then she'll hold up a 30-second warning sign. And 3 minutes goes by very quickly, so please don't hesitate. Restrooms are right outside that door, just to make sure you know that. If you have a written statement, please leave it at the court reporter's table, and we will collect those at the end of the meeting. Hopefully you can remember the number that was next to your name so that you will be prepared to speak in order. I will be calling out the number and name of the speakers as they are to come up. When you come to the podium, please remember to say your name and spell it for our court reporter so that we can have everything accurately in the transcript. And with that, Judy, is there anything else we need to say before we begin?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, then the first speaker is number 1, Danny Cook.
So I want to speak to you guys first and foremost about the NICU. As you all know, that's the thing that brought me here. That's the thing that garnered my attention, was when Ballad Health decided that they wanted to try to reduce the Holston Valley Medical Center Level 3 NICU to a Level 1 nursery. The reason why I believe that that's a significant disadvantage that only exists because this COPA was allowed to happen, and the COPA was allowed to happen under SB 994, is because it allowed a merger to take place, right? The existing COPA law would have allowed Mountain States and Wellmont to work together. This law created one entity. That one entity with no competition means that we would be losing a center that we would have had because it would have been a Wellmont facility. You had 272 babies that were treated at that facility last year. 83 of those babies were NAS babies. If you know anything about this region, you know that the northeast region of Tennessee accounts for 25% of all NAS babies across the entire state. Our infant mortality rate is triple what the national average is. That means, so on a national level, 5.8 babies out of every 1,000 die at birth. In Hawkins County, that number is 11.2. In Bristol, Virginia, that number is 15.2. In Sullivan County, that number is 6.5. In Carter County, that number is 7.5. It's ridiculous, and when you combine that with our opioid crisis, you create a situation that cannot be solved when you reduce access and you move access to care away. Now, you've heard Alan Levine talk about protocols that they have utilized in Norton and in Johnston Memorial. The reason that's problematic is because it's also illegal. According to Virginia state law, level 1 nurseries can only be used for well babies with low risk, and if there is a risk, they are to be stabilized and then immediately transported. What I will tell you is that Norton is using those facilities, and they are keeping babies on cardiorespiratory monitors and giving morphine treatments. And the longest they've had has been up to 6 weeks. That is special care. That's sick baby care, and they're billing it as such as a level 1 facility, which again is illegal. That's problematic. So it's not that we oppose all of these changes. We oppose them being done in the manner that they're being done, without resources actually happening, without training and stability. These are things that take a long time to put into place. You cannot put families at a disadvantage and expect them to go an additional 30, 45, 60 minutes away when we know that babies do better, they have better outcomes when they are closer to their moms, when they are closer to their dads. Study after study after study shows that and proves that it is definitive. Holston Valley's NICU, by Ballard's own information, their babies go home 3 to 5 days faster than Niswonger. So when you talk to me about better outcomes, the proof is in the pudding and in the numbers, and they came straight from Ballard Health. Our level 3 NICU needs to stay exactly where it is, because moving it away is a disadvantage to every baby that is going to be born, like this one, that was 1 pound and 3 ounces, every mom, every dad, every grandmother. These folks live in a region that is 20 to 40% poverty. 10% don't have transportation. You have a high rate of food insecurity. People do not have time to track down health care when they're trying to figure out where their next meal is coming from. And it's your job to make sure that they have access to that care and that it's quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Number 2 is Tim Bradshaw. Number 3 is Deborah Holman. Please be ready. Mr. Bradshaw.
Hello, my name is Tim Bradshaw, T-I-M-B-R-A-D-S-H-A-W, and I'm a resident of Sullivan County. I've been involved in EMS and fire services for 35 years in Southwest Virginia and Tennessee, East Tennessee. The first thing I want to touch on tonight, I know you guys were presented a letter from the Chambers of Commerce today, and Alan Levine has talked about how he was surprised and shocked that that letter happened and it was unexpected. Well, during the course of the last 4 weeks, Ballard has been going to the Chambers of Commerce and speaking. They've changed up how they're speaking. Instead of front of county governments, they're going to places where we can't follow them and are not allowed to speak. So I really don't think it was a surprise. I want to give you some numbers real quick. 220,217 represents the population of Sullivan, Hawkins, and Hancock County combined. Those are the folks that are being disadvantaged in Tennessee by the reduction of services at Holston Valley. Out of those counties, all 3 of those counties has passed opposing resolutions, which you have a copy in front of you from Southwest Virginia and East Tennessee, that has supported opposition in the restructuring plan that Ballard has, and that is the elimination of a reduction to a level 3 trauma service and elimination of NICU services. 288,902 represents the people in Southwest Virginia that now have to travel farther for level 1 trauma centers. In some instances, many of these folks, by Virginia trauma triage guidelines, will be forced to go to Pikeville, Kentucky, because it is logistically closer than Johnson City Medical Center. The state of Virginia does not recognize level 3 trauma services as a high level of care. That is important. Over 21,000 people locally have signed a petition opposing these changes. We're not opposing Ballard. I still believe Ballard can be the right answer. Ballard can be the right answer for our citizens in our county, but we have to have objective decision making for the entire region and not one certain geographical location. One of the things I want to touch on, medical, not trauma services, are suffering at Hostin Valley Hospital right now. The chances, if you have a stroke, of going to Hostin Valley and being treated are very slim. You're going to Johnson City. Those folks are being transported every day, transported directly from Rogersville, from Hawkins County, lengthier transports with life-threatening emergencies. It's happening every day. Right now, Hostin Valley and Indian Path both in Kingsport are on diversion. Hostin Valley's been on diversion since 2 o'clock yesterday. I personally went down last night and looked myself. The lobby was full. The ER was full. But guess what? Half the floors upstairs were empty. There's no staff. There's no staffing to cover it because the changes in pay, the changes that they are making, they can't get staff to cover it. We're seeing 24-hour admit times from the ER. People are suffering. You folks are charged and have the duty to influence and make changes. We're not anti-Ballard. We're pro-health care and equal health care for our region. We want the people that are needing help to be helped. You have the duty and influence to do that, and I'm asking you to do that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3, Deborah Holman.
Hello, my name is Deborah Holman, D-E-B-O-R-A-H, H-O-L-M-A-N. And I want to talk about my brother was taken to Bristol Hospital on January 9th by ambulance because he appeared to be having a stroke. He got there and he got a CAT scan within about 30 minutes, and it took a while for us to get the results. And about an hour later, we were told it didn't look like he'd had a stroke, but he still couldn't talk or move, and they decided that it was something to do with blood sugar. They turned out his blood sugar was 37, and that's very low. They gave him a glucose injection, and he did improve. But in all this time, he was laying there without being able to talk or move. And he was laying on a bed in the ER that the sheet had only been pulled down like 12 inches along the top. So he's laying on the plastic bed, and his clothes were wet where he had collapsed at home. He had spilled his drink on himself. And never, ever did anyone come in to fix the sheet or offer him a gown or something to wear other than the wet clothes. I finally worked on the sheet some, and he did get moved to a room on 2nd floor, and it at least had a sheet. But he still had no dry clothes or clean clothes. I thought they always gave patients a gown to wear. His medications were given in what seemed to be a random order, never all at once, and he'd get partial times, and he'd have to ask about the others. And they'd go back to get them, but it would take another 30 minutes to an hour before he would get them. And the night of the night, the first night, he has restless legs, and his legs were jerking, and that really hurts. And he was denied his medication by the nurse. She told him no, she couldn't give it to him until she had talked to a doctor. 2 hours later, she still hadn't talked to that doctor, as far as we knew, because he never got the medication. I could not stand to see him laying there like that. I got his medicine out of the bag that he had brought with him and gave it to him. Now, that might not have been the right thing to do as far as the hospital was concerned, but it was the right thing to do for him. And the neighbor came back and offered him his medicine. And when he would call to need to go to the bathroom, it would take at least 30 minutes before anyone was available to help him. We did help him when he couldn't wait any longer. He was supposed to be drinking. They never brought him the drink. I went down and bought it for him. And all this time that we were there, I would see nurses, and they were busy. They were going from room to room to room. And finally, a doctor came on the second day he was there and told us no stroke, blood sugar problem, but they didn't know why, what was happening. They ordered more tests, but he didn't get them. He was released, but they didn't give us time to go home and get his oxygen or his shoes, and he still hadn't got clean clothes until we went and got them. And they didn't give us time to get his oxygen there to him before they released him. And he didn't get out fast enough, so they sent a second wheelchair to take him down. And his foot had surgery, and he was supposed to have it rebandaged every day. They did it once in the 3 days he was there. And when he went back to his doctor, he had a staph infection in his foot. And now they're saying he may have to have a second surgery. And we can only assume, and that's not a good thing to do, that he acquired that staph infection while he was at Bristol Hospital. I don't know that, but they can't tell us. And I have other things I could tell you about my aunt, but my time is up, so I will turn it in.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holman. Number 4, Crystal Reagan. Yeah, I want to take this.
So how does this work? My name is Crystal Regan, and that's CRYSTALREGAN. And I am a licensed healthcare practitioner in Tennessee and Virginia. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. And I'm here to speak to you about my experience as a patient. And the handouts I've given you are actually my own itemized bills. There are 3 bills there, and they're dated 11/13/17, which is the pre-merger, 6/15/18, which is post-merger, 12/1/18, which is the post-merger. On those bills, I just love being short. On those bills, you're going to notice there's no increase in the build cost on identical items between 11/13/17 and 6/15/18. But on the 12/1/18 bill, you're going to notice the prices increased on lipase, CBC, metabolic panel, urinalysis. Now, my understanding is that those increases took effect in September, and that's less than 8 months after the merger. And that's exactly what the FTC predicted was going to happen if this merger took effect. They said that we were going to see our prices increase. And this is a significant public disadvantage to all of us. The lack of competition has driven these prices up. There is also a scan that I receive 2 to 3 times annually to monitor whether a pancreatic mass has returned. That scan cost me $3,885 on January the 5th, 2017. Today, that scan will cost me $4,048, and that is a significant public disadvantage. What can we expect prices to be in 6 months or a year if this continues? On January the 1st, hospitals were required to post their charge masters. And Marvin Eichhorn, the Chief Operating Officer for Ballad Health, said in regards to the prices online, and I quote, "This is not what anybody pays. If you have insurance, then it's what that insurance is going to pay for something, and what that expectation is for the patient in that case, to pay for an out-of-pocket basis. And that is very, very out of touch. My 30% is based on that price, and when it increases, I pay more. When our insurance pays more, our premiums increase. I was also misdiagnosed in a Ballad facility in December. I was told I had GERD. Within 1.5 weeks, HMG had to do surgery on me to relieve a stomach obstruction. I asked to have an executive from Ballad return my call, but instead I got a letter saying my case was closed and I had received appropriate care. So I guess appropriate care would be I would go home and my stomach would have ruptured, I would have had sepsis, and I would have died. They aren't listening. This COPA, I thought that it could maybe be modified, but it is my belief that it needs to be terminated. At this point, I and my family will no longer utilize Ballad Health for our health care needs. And this part, this is strictly business. It is not personal, and I don't see her here. Dr. Latimer, she needs to recuse herself from your all's local advisory board. Her husband, Bill Green, has been very outspoken. about his relationship with Ballard and his support. And we need her to recuse herself sooner than later. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Regan. Number 5 is Brenda Isaacs. Brenda Isaacs, number 5. The next one is number 6, Jane Harris. Ms. Isaacs. Ms. Harris, please be ready.
Brenda Isaacs, BRENDA ISAACS. Thank you for letting me speak. I come on behalf of my daughter who is pregnant. She'll have twins in April. If she is forced to go to Johnson City, the expense, I'm in Southwest Virginia, she is in Hawkins County, but the expense of possibly separating babies and mother would traumatize the babies. The expense of transporting those infants to Johnson City, as she would be delivering in Kingsport. On top of that, if the twins were to need additional care, they needed to stay above and beyond the time that my daughter would be there. Autumn and Bailey, to be able to nurse them, she would have to come to Johnson City, come home, get Trent and Jada to school, go back to Johnson City, nurse Autumn and Bailey, go back and pick up the kids from school, and the expense just kind of just snowballs. In addition to not wanting the NIC unit to leave, 3 years ago my grandson was sleigh riding in Scott County and busted his head open. The roads were very bad. I was not even able to get to work. I had to have someone come and get me that day. We could not have gotten to Johnson City. It would be a serious disadvantage to lose our trauma, to lose our NIC unit, and extend the need and the travel distance and the expense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 6, Jane Harris.
Hello, my name is Jane Harris. That's JaneHarris. I'm a resident of Sullivan County, a retired nurse, and I worked for 25 years for the Red Cross. I'm a past chairman of the Sullivan County Emergency Planning Committee. That's a group that plans for mass care, mass casualty type incidents that happen in a community. My first experience with a major disaster was the John Sevier apartment fire in Johnson City in 1989. 14 people died. I remember where I was in 1964 when the explosion in Eastman killed 16 people and injured 200. There have been many other disasters in this area, and there will be many in the future, some with a lot of incidents of injury and death and some less. I'm not going to tell you all the things that could cause an incident for us, but we do have a lot of risk factors. A functioning trauma system is essential for quality care for all of our community, all the people in our area when this happens. I speak in support of maintaining a minimum of a level 2 trauma center at Holston Valley Hospital. I worked in disaster planning for 20 years. Everyone that's a responder has to be prepared and has to work together in a disaster. The ER staff at Holston Valley has worked for years to plan and execute those drills. I hope Ballard will be continuing with that. But we need all hospitals to be at a high level to triage and treat patients. Don't take away from Sullivan County what they've worked so hard to develop. A facility that's been a level 1 for 30 years should not be downgraded that significantly. The collaboration of, we lose the efforts of many people and many capital expenditures if we do that downgrading. It's often said that if you don't use something, a skill or a facility or whatever, you lose it. I hate to think of what a waste it will be for us to lose all that we have gained in the past 30 years. Downgrading this ER so significantly is definitely a public disadvantage to quality of care for our entire community. In the COPA, 4.03 says access to health care and quality health care is required. Don't limit this. Kingsport is known as a very caring community, one that gets things done for the good of our residents. Leaders have put the needs of the community before their pocketbook for 100 years. We've taught our children that by example. Most people who move here comment on the Kingsport spirit. We should not live in the past, but we should learn from it. Ballad Health could tap into this spirit and spread it across our whole area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Number 7, Carolyn Dufert.
It's Carolyn, C-A-R-O-L-Y-N, Dorfert, D-O-E-R-F-E-R-T. I am a registered nurse who has worked for the past 35 years for the National American Red Cross out of Washington, D.C. My specialty is disaster response. I have been to some horrendous situations, as you can imagine, whether it's simple, I hate to say simple, but true, simple hurricanes, floods, wildfires, terrorism, airplane crashes, and the list goes on. We have a lot of threats here, and most of us think of Eastman and BAE right away, but there are others. We currently have an unstable dam. Oh, okay. Most people don't think in terms of the dam above it, Watauga, which happens to be an earthen dam and can much more easily be stressed than a steel dam. We have others. We have nuclear fuels. Well, I hate to think of problems there. Our community does have remarkable risks. We have 2 interstates that cross. One of the worst things on the road that I've seen, you know, a gasoline tanker truck is nothing but a Molotov cocktail going down the highway. Yeah, absolutely. Our community is constantly at risk with these threats, and there are plenty of others. We do get tornadoes. We had one 5 years ago in Greenville with a full list of casualties. We tend to forget these things. To reduce our emergency room at Holston Valley is one of the most foolish things I have ever heard. Time equals survival. Everybody knows that. And this merger and getting rid of that time, lengthening it, is going to cost lives, not just babies, everybody's. Our terrain is different than the rest of the state. Our geography is different. Even our weather patterns are different. And we monitor those things. We open shelters here for ice storms, and the rest of the state, it's 75 degrees. Please consider maintaining level 1. We have too many risks. We have too many wonderful people here. We can't afford to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Allgood, number 8.
Hello. My name is Teresa Allgood, Teresa Allgood. I have been a patient at the Kingsport Hematology and Oncology Center since April of 2014. I've received excellent treatment there. When I went for my visit in May of 2018, I was told that I would no longer be able to receive my Infed infusions, that they were going to use another drug, and that Infed was no longer available. So I went ahead and scheduled my appointment, and a few days later, the nurse from hematology called and said that they had found some Infed and that I would receive my Infed infusion in June. So when I went back for my appointment in November, was told I needed more infusions, which I usually get 3 or 4 a year. The different doctor, because my previous doctor had left the practice, so I saw another doctor, and he said that, of course, Infed was not available, that they were going to use Ferrahene, which is a non-formulary drug. The routine of my infusions usually consist of 1 day, about 4 or 5 hours. With Ferrahene, now it's going to involve 2 days for several hours. My charges, this is what concerns me. My charges for over 4 years have been $3,500. The new infusion that they said that I had no choice is $13,449.29. This is outrageous. And I understand that when they move to Indian Path, that they potentially will change from Ferrahene to yet another medication that I expect to cost even more. This has certainly created a significant disadvantage to me and my family, having to go 2 days instead of 1, having no choice, and to see an increase of over $10,000 for one procedure. We're very limited in access to availability of other services. There's no competitors in this area that provides the infusion that I need, and my understanding is that this is in total violation of the COPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 9, Jeffrey Boysiak.
Jeffrey Frazier, Jeffrey, Fraysier. Good afternoon, Board. I'm Jeffrey Frazier. I'm with the Disabled American Veterans. I'm a district commander of East Tennessee. The reason that I'm here today to explain to you how this merger is going to affect our veterans in the region. First of all, as you well know, Trump passed a bill, signed in legislation in January of this year, what they call the Choice Program. The Choice Program states that anyone that seeks care at the VA Medical Center in Johnson City who cannot be treated within a timely time frame, which is at less than 30 days, has to be fee-based to an outside facility. Now let me ask you a question. How is these veterans going to be fee-based when we've been on diversion for 2 days in Kingsport? There's no way. We have a patient, say, go into the VA Medical Center. He's a cardiac patient. He's having an MI. He needs immediate attention. The normal transition is they send them to the medical center. The medical center a lot of times is on diversion. Therefore, they have to send them to Knoxville to UT Medical Center, which is an hour's ride from the VA. And if they can't go by ambulance, they go by helicopter, which is $44,000 one way. So you tell me how this helps the veteran. It greatly impacts the veteran's care. It greatly impacts. We've had veterans die on the way to Knoxville because we was on diversion at Mountain States or Hostin Valley or whatever. And I just want to say one thing. I grew up in this community. I love my community. I fought for my country, and I'm disabled because of it. And I've sacrificed a lot. But I want you to know I've got 2 small grandchildren, and both of them have severe medical conditions. And at any time, if it takes 25 to 30 minutes to get those children to the hospital, they'll die on the way. One of them has severe asthma. And as you well know, if you're deprived more than 5 minutes of oxygen, your brain starts deteriorating. Brain damage occurs. So, like I said, first of all, I love my God, and I love my family, and I love my community, and I want to see the best for this community, and that's why I'm here today. May God bless you all and make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Number 10, Tim Mullen.
Got my own timer. Ready? I need your all's help. I'm very weak on voice right now. Go. This is on Homeland Security Trauma System.
Excuse me, your name, please, sir,
I'm sorry.
for the
Tim
court
Mullen.
reporter.
Tim Mullen, M-U-L-L-E-N. Thank you.
Thank you.
Homeland Security Trauma System, our current one. The current level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 medical trauma system in Tennessee was set up nearly 30 years ago. 911 happened 2001. Terrorism technology has advanced since then up to 18 years. In Tennessee, we have the Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Northeast Tennessee level 1s. They're all well-structured, solid trauma systems for homeland security terrorism. Each has an infrastructure of well-planned highways, interstates, and transportation needs, medical for worst-case scenarios. Northeast Tennessee was built specifically, as it currently is, for trauma. To strip it to a level 1 north of 81 completely makes us vulnerable. We're already marked as a Homeland Security terrorist target, having a near Fortune 300 international chemical plant, military explosive plants. To lower us below 2 goes against all Homeland Security protocol for developing a trauma security grid in the United States of America. If our trauma system is neutered, we, north of 81, which is approximately 400,000 citizens, have only one way to get to Johnson City. It's air or ground. If we have bad weather, that stops the helicopters. We have one interstate. That's all. One interstate. If it's blocked, we have nothing else. The other cities have a multiple grid like we do now. If I was a terrorist, I'd make my move in town, I'd block I-26, and if I was lucky, we'd have bad weather, and I would sit back and I would watch the chaos. This is real world. We have school shootings, mass stabbings, hand grenade church attacks. You can buy a $300 drone, load it with dynamite, load it with gasoline, or a bag of anthrax if you're that good, put it over a high school stadium, stick it over Fun Fest, fly it over NASCAR. It cannot be handled by a neutered trauma system. The people, are, as the newspaper today, they are wild. They are wild. Level 3 does not have the tools, does not have the equipment, nor the doctors. One vicious school shooting, and we're a blood-dead vulnerables. How many times have we heard cities saying we just weren't prepared for this? Northeast Tennessee right now is very much prepared and gaining in that. However, if they pull our levels below 2, we're terrorist bait. We won't need hospitals, we'll need cemeteries. Even Las Vegas did not have enough trauma centers. Is there anyone in here? Well, let me just ask you, does anybody here want to give up our Homeland Security trauma system? No. Thank you. Quote from the United States National Library of Medicine: preparing our hospitals and our healthcare facilities for disasters is a national security priority. I plead with you, each of you, and I thank the council, by the way, the local advisory council. I plead with our governor, Governor Bill Lee, and I personally ask our United States President, President Donald J. Trump, to somehow, some way, come up with a solution where we will not lose our Homeland Security trauma system. to be neutered will be a disadvantage to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 11, Dr. Mary Johnson.
My name is Dr. Mary Johnson, M-A-R-Y-J-O-H-N-S-O-N. This is the scariest thing I've ever done, and I've done some scary things in my time. Thank you for the 3 minutes. I am stating my opinion based on my experience as an ETSU assistant professor and pediatric hospitalist working at a Mountain States facility in Virginia between 2015 and 2018. In November 2016, I attended a COPA hearing in Johnson City. It became clear during the course of what amounted to a dog and pony show focused on corporate regionalism that speaking up would be pointless and likely deadly for my job. I left early. Almost a year later, in August 2017, I sent written comments to both Tennessee and Virginia offering up my experience with Alan Levine and Mountain States as a cautionary tale and warning state health officials that employed and or contracted clinicians working for Mountain States, Wellmont, and ETSU were not coming forward because they were terrified for their jobs and careers. It was my observation that the COPA did virtually nothing to protect the people that the states needed to hear from most. Ballard has pitched a partnership with ETSU physicians and Niswonger Children's Hospital as a means of expanding and staffing Alan Levine's vision for pediatrics. I am here today to present the details of how reprehensibly I was treated as I labored on Alan Levine's ground in a cooperative community program that crossed state and jurisdictional lines and predated the merger by almost 3 years. Every mechanism of internal state and federal oversight utterly failed me as a physician, not for the first time, with the game clearly rigged from the start. I only survived 2 business days beyond the finalization of the merger, but those 2 days give full legitimacy to my story as I believe Ballard Health's first physician kill. I cannot now stand by and allow Mr. Levine to flat out lie to the public as his people once lied to me. I cannot be silent while other pediatricians and pediatric subspecialists, particularly those just starting out, are sucked into Ballard's black hole of greed, corporate indifference, and administrative incompetence. I am responding to the state of Tennessee's specific request for public input. I am asserting my status as a medical whistleblower done wrong and publicly requesting the state and federal government's protection against Ballard Health. I am also requesting state and federal investigators of a I am also requesting state and federal investigations of a series of retaliatory acts that were clearly founded in Alan Levine's fear that my story looked bad and threatened his precious merger. I am aware this letter is considered public record, noting the constraints of HIPAA, names of patients, and specific dates and times and specific diagnoses are omitted. But it is far past the time that the public understood how Ballard Health really conducts business and how a university, supposedly with all of the power of the great state of Tennessee behind it, allowed its physician employees, someone who it was supposed to protect, to be so horribly used and abused and then thrown away like garbage. I will tell you stories of bad babies, of former abortionists unable to pass their boards hired to teach new doctors, of substandard perinatal evaluations igniting clinical nightmares, and of denied and delayed transports, of a pediatrician going way above and beyond, all but destroying her health, working to the brink of burnout, and of repetitive academic and corporate baits and switches that would make mobsters blush. I will close my story with commentary on Alan Levine's current plans for regionalized pediatrics. I have already made many of these points online in Facebook postings and newspaper commentary. I wear being banned by the Johnson City Press as a badge of honor. This is America. This doctor is still in. It is time for Mr. Levine to take his medicine, and it is time for all of you to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 12, Ketron Bailey. Number 12, Ketron Bailey. Let's please hold our excitement so that we have enough time for everyone to speak. Number 12, Ketron Bailey. Mr. Bailey.
Oh, I'm Ketron Bailey, Ketron Bailey. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and I hope you all take this to heart and you really listen to everybody that's speaking. I want to speak to you tonight about the COPA and the certificate of need for information against Ballard's changes. Just to be clear, the Commonwealth of Virginia has laws and the state requirements regarding newborn care. The state of Tennessee just has guidelines, so there's a big difference right there. CEOs of healthcare companies with dual state COPAs agreements should learn and know the difference. Regarding Ballard Health plan to close the Holston Valley Level 3 NICU, Ballard 7 of the COPA states, Nothing in the COPA exempts Ballard from compliance with the laws of governing certificate of needs. Closing the Host and Valley level NICU directly contradicts the certificate of needs of neonatal intensive care units as it's designed to support the state health plan 5 principles for achieving better health. Changing or closing the NICU adversely impacts 3 of the 5 principles significantly. Access to care, we know that's definitely going to happen. Workforce, that's already showing. They're leaving. Economic inefficiencies, that's for the population, not the hospital, and it's happened already. In addition to the Prenatal Advisory Committee has not been consulted about closing the Host and Valley Level 3 NICU. Alan Levine's just doing what he wants. He's having a free circus up here. Per the state health plan certificate of needs, the NICU's 8 Department of Health must, so regarding applications, therefore should do so regarding the closures. Number 12 of the certificate of need for the neonatal care intensive care unit states that the residential care changes from health care to health protection and promotes. 83 closings in NICU that has 272 babies admitted in the last year. 84 of them are premature, NOS, and 66 in the respiratory distress. Does not protect or promote the health of the population of this area. I please ask you to leave this NICU and this trauma center right where it's at. I'm a survivor of the trauma center. I live in Hawkins County, and I was all the way over in Hancock County, which is a good hour away from Host and Valley. And a helicopter couldn't fly that day for weather. Thank God the rescue squad could get me to Host and Valley, because they sure wouldn't have got me all the way up to Johnson City. That's another 35 to 40 minutes. And if you know anything about this area, 26 could have been closed down because of a wreck, like at most time it happens, that or weather, and I would have passed away. All the thanks of Host and Ballard trying to save money for no reason. It's time to save lives. Please keep it all open. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 13, Christy Castle.
My name's Christy, Christy Castle. The state of Tennessee, it has the 8th highest rate of infant mortality in the country. The country average is 5.8 babies per 1,000 births. Tennessee's average is 7.4 babies per 1,000 births. Tennessee has an abnormally high rate of premature births, which is 11.3% in 2016, which accounted for 26% of the entire state's infant deaths. In 2017, Child Fatality Annual Report shows Washington County had 7.5 out of 1,000 infant mortality rate. Carter County, 11.3. Sullivan County was under 6.5. The national average for NAS babies is 6 per live births. Sullivan County has the highest of 50.5. Let that sink in for a second. That's 50.5. That's pretty high. Knowing this information, why would Ballard propose shutting down a level 3 NICU? The Virginia infant mortality rate is 5.9 out of 1,000 live births, which on the surface, it sounds like there's not an issue, but there's some things we need to kind of be concerned about. Let's take a little bit of a closer look. Lee County, Virginia is 13.6 out of every 1,000. Wise County is 10.3. Buchanan County, 19.6. Bristol, Virginia, 15.2. Washington County, 12.4. Holston Valley NICU is a lot more easily accessible than Johnson City. Trying to get those babies to Johnson City from Lee County is a lot further, and that will result in a lot more deaths. With the existing opioid crisis that this community has, the lack of mental health care, the limited resources due to the poverty, it's a valid concern of closing the NICU in Holston Valley Medical Center. I ask that the board really take a closer look and consider the COPA. It is a big disadvantage for this area, and consider not closing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 14, Lou Ann White.
Hi, my name is Lou Ann White, L-O-U-A-N-N-W-H-I-T-E. Hello, thank you for letting me talk. I'm a retired healthcare worker with over 41 years experience here in this area. I live in Kingsport. I had 38 and a half years spent at Holston Valley. I've worked directly with patient care, I've been in management, and I've done clinical education. I also was an adjunct faculty for a local college. My experience spans a multitude of areas, which included NICU, critical care, trauma, wound care, and many other components in between. I feel that the merger of this hospital system, Wellmont and Mountain States, that it has created a healthcare monopoly and is a public disadvantage to our region of Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia, and areas that I live. Without competition, there will be lower wages for those who work in healthcare, which has already started when Ballard has changed the shift premiums, the clinical ladders, and extremely low starting salaries for new graduate nurses. Our children and our grandchildren will not want to stay in this area to work if they do decide to further their education and become nurses, doctors, therapists, or other healthcare professionals. They will move to a way to take jobs in other areas with competition has been driving the pay grade up, not down like here. If you are a healthcare worker and you want to stay near your home, you'll have to settle for what the only show around, which is Ballard, will pay you. And that's not very much. When I heard that they were starting new GNs out like around $13, $14 an hour, you know, I've got a grandchild that works at Powell's that's making pretty dang good. That's where I'd be. So this will cause a trickle-down effect. Kids will not want to go to the colleges around here and do health care. They'll be going into some other area. If they do go into health care, they'll be leaving. When they leave, there goes our economy. They're not going to be staying around here, so people will be moving out of the region. We already see that nurses are leaving. We see physicians leaving, and Ballard has even stated that some of their physicians have already started leaving. The monopolies of any kind are not good, and monopolies in healthcare are definitely a travesty to everyone from the youngest to the oldest citizen in a community. I'm asking you to please reconsider what was allowed to happen to our healthcare region to our healthcare in our region. The COPA and its revisions should have never been allowed to happen. Ballard is a public disadvantage to everyone from eastern Kentucky, Virginia line to the Whitfield area, and from the Tennessee, North Carolina line and down past Greenville. This COPA should be voided. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 15, Gary Frady.
My name is Gary Frady, G-A-R-Y-F-R-A-D-Y. I'm speaking tonight because I want the committee to know that I credit the doctors and nurses of the Holston Valley NICU with saving the life of my beloved granddaughter. She was born at 28 weeks. Her lungs were not fully developed. Her eyes were still fused shut at birth. For 3 long months, the dedicated doctors and nurses of Holston Valley NICU did for my granddaughter what no one else on God's green earth could do. They kept her alive, and because of their extraordinary efforts, they ultimately gave her a chance at life. I believe with all my heart that had Ballard Health's proposed plan to transport at-risk babies to Johnson City, if it had been in effect at the time of her premature birth, she would not have survived the additional transport time required to get her to Niswonger Hospital. I ask you as an oversight committee, how can anyone believe that it is an acceptable thing to significantly increase the time required to get these at-risk babies to the life-saving care they so desperately need? Does that sound like an organizational plan that considers the patient first? Does it make sense to this committee to take an already high-risk baby and subject them to even greater risk? Is it acceptable, as some have so callously said, that the increased risk would only amount to a potentially insignificant increase in infant mortalities? Let me assure this committee, had my granddaughter died because of unnecessary delays in getting her the life-saving care that she required, I would not have considered her death an insignificant addition to the increased mortality statistics. It would have been a devastating loss for my entire family. How can so drastic a change in the delivery of quality of care to our at-risk babies be viewed as anything other than a very significant disadvantage to the citizens of our community? I believe that the plan put forth by Ballot Health violates the terms of the COPA agreement, specifically sections 4.02 and 4.03 as they relate to the quality of care and the accessibility of care. Therefore, I respectfully ask this committee to reject Ballot Health's plan to close the Holston Valley NICU and their plan to increase transport times in order to send at-risk babies to Niswonger Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frady. Number 16, Chris Casey.
Chris Casey, K-R-I-S-C-A-S-E-Y. A surgeon once said, to help the people, you must first get them out of the holler. I'm an advanced EMT at Duffield Fire and Rescue. I grew up in that holler. And along with the amazing team of people that I work with, we bring the sick and the injured out of that holler. With that being said, Virginia EMS protocols do not recognize a level 3 trauma center. With serious injury, we have to transport to a level 1 or a level 2 unless the scene is 30 minutes or more to that facility. This means that the injured that we cannot fly will have to be taken by ground, and they will be taken to Holston Valley. If these specialties of a level 1 are being dropped to a level 3, that means our injured will be, they will be taken to Holston Valley, hopefully to be stabilized. Now, we bring these people out on 1-lane dirt roads, narrow, curvy roads. Our time is pushed to meet the golden hour to begin with. We're not going to make it if we have to be stabilized first and then have to be transported to Johnson City. How? Now tell me, how is that giving our citizens the proper and best health care possible? Because it's not. I mean, truthfully, morally, and ethically, to say that it's not a severe disadvantage, you can't. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 17, Wayne Baxter.
My name's Wayne Baxter, W-A-Y-N-E-B-A-X-T-E-R. I'm a registered nurse and a paramedic. I'm a pediatric and adult ER nurse, and I was the EMS director for Loudoun County. I'm here to support the nurses of Holston Valley Medical Center that don't have a voice for fear of their jobs. Just today, one of them told me they were demoralized and felt like administration did not support them. Ballot has 8x10 color glossies of everything we put on Facebook and are using it against them. I'm here to oppose the downgrading of Holston Valley Medical Center to a level 3 trauma center. On section 403C, Roman numeral 2 of the COPA, it states that the Department of Health pre-approved consolidation of level 1 trauma centers. And while this was pre-approved, pre-approval did not mean downgrading. And it didn't specify what was consolidated. We found that out in November from Alan Levine. And when we found out what the actual plans were, we found out they were publicly disadvantageous and dangerous to people's lives. This is going to be costly. The state of Tennessee statistics on trauma patients show the absolute need to keep a level 1 trauma center at Holston Valley. The data I received from the Tennessee Injury Surveillance and Hospital Discharge Data System does not include citizens of Kentucky or Virginia. But in 2016, Holston Valley received 1,049 level 1 and level 2 trauma patients. Bristol received 393 level 2 trauma patients. The total combined of only Tennessee trauma residents was 1,442. 61% of these patients came from Sullivan County. 43 of all Tennessee trauma patients in the Northeast go to Holston Valley. This doesn't include Virginia and Tennessee again. Johnson City Medical Center received 1,859 trauma patients. Only 154 of those patients came from Sullivan County. That's 8%. This is only slightly above the 29 patients that UT Hospital received from the Northeast. One large disaster is going to flip that around, folks. One large disaster. Senior citizens should be fighting to keep Holston Valley as a level 1 trauma center. 43% of all trauma patients are over 65 years of age. This compares to only 6% of trauma patients being 0 to 17 years of age. 32% of the patients that came to the hospitals came directly from Sullivan County, leaving the other 68 originating in 7 other counties. This means that not only is Ballard requesting to curtail services to the newborn in the NICU, they're also requesting to curtail the same services to the senior citizens in the emergency department. I worked EMS since 1983 in various roles. I visited both Holston Valley and I visited Johnson City. My wife was a patient in Johnson City ER one night. And from observing the infrastructure of both hospitals, I cannot fathom why Ballard believes it is better to keep Johnson City as level 1 and downgrade level 3. I believe that the military aeromedical services cannot put a helicopter at Johnson City. The transportation issues have been discussed over and over about if anybody got on the I-26 during the paving, you couldn't get to Johnson City. EMS services are going to be negatively affected. They're going to have to transport longer areas, they're going to have less people, and there's going to be less people covering your county. Finally, I want to say one thing. The nurses I mentioned that were downgraded and demoralized, I've spoken to multiple nursing and technical staff and heard the same thing. Ballard Health has cut their pay. They have no recourse, they're scared for their job. They could leave the area if they could. Ballard followed the letter of the law. They raised their base rates. One of them, they raised their base rates 11 cents, but they cut their shift differential from $3.45 an hour to $2.46 an hour. So they lost 81 cents an hour. That's about $1,800 a year. People are leaving because of this. Ballard Health is bad for Tennessee, bad for Virginia, and bad for Kentucky. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 18, Gary Cutshaw.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Cutshaw, G-A-R-Y-C-U-T-S-H-A-L-L. And I'm from Greene County. I'm here to speak about Ballard's organization operating the Laughlin Nursing Home in Greene County. My mother is a patient there, has Alzheimer's and dementia, and has been since April of 2017. When we first checked into Laughlin Nursing Home, there was plenty of staff, adequate coverage. It was in Greene County, the best of the lot. It was the best nursing home by far. Ballard started exercising their influence in January of 2018. Since that time, we have lost 23 CNAs and 3 have been hired. So that's a net loss of 20 of the direct caregivers, the ones that change the messy diapers, the ones that feed those that can't. the ones that transport the patients. We've also lost 11 LPNs and hired 2, a loss of 9. And this is the same facility that has a 90-bed capacity. It's usually it runs between 75 to 80 beds filled. So I'm not here because it's just my mother, because I'm there every other day, and my sister's the day that I'm not. We spend with my mother to make sure she has care. But there's so many people in this nursing facility that has nobody to speak for them. I had a 95-year-old lady come up to me and said, "Thank you, Gary, for speaking out for those that can't speak for themselves." She said, "I can't remember much, but I can remember that you're talking for our well-being." The other thing is that the differential in pay. They tell me, we're trying to hire people. We want to hire people. Well, when you pay $2 an hour less than the other facilities, what do your good people do? They go to the other facilities so that they can get another payment on the car, an extra house payment a year. And last of all, I'd like to tell you, this is what I've saw personally, not by word of mouth, but seen. I've seen patients sit in a wheelchair with a pad with urine running into the floor because there's not enough help. We've got good help. We just don't have enough help. I've seen 14 patients being fed by one CNA. Think you could feed 14 people in 45 minutes and supervise 14? You can't. They lay, when we first went there was a 2-hour wet check. That's well gone by the wayside. People lay in their feces overnight in this facility because of the lack of people. Now you take 3 days in this past month, there has been 1 CNA in the facility and 2 nurses for 80 people. Now you put your mom, dad, or your loved one in there and we have a fire. Do you want your loved one rescued, or you want the other one rescued and let yours perish? I've talked to the state fire marshal, I've talked to the state government, the congressman, everybody I could get to listen to say, these people aren't disposable. They're not like TV sets and cell phones. When they don't work good, you throw them away. They're not disposable. They need to be cared for. They give their life for our country and our counties. We need to take care of them and give them the services and treatment and care that they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 19, Donna Arnold.
I'm Donna Arnold, D-O-N-N-A-A-R-N-O-L-D. This is a personal experience that I had. On January 11th, on a Friday, my mother-in-law was transported from an assisted living to Holston Valley emergency room. She had a hematoma that burst, a lot of blood loss. I met her there immediately. They brought down a surgeon.
Miss Arnold, could you speak into the mic closer? Thank you.
They brought down a surgeon, and 2 nurses took turns holding her leg so they could suture that. That lasted about 2 hours. I was staying in the room with her, and the nurses and the doctor, the surgeon, they were amazing. They were wonderful. And when they left, a few hours passed, and this was the first time I'd really walked out of the room to see the ER. And I walked out to find out when we might get a bed. And when I walked out, I was gobsmacked with all the beds and the wheelchairs. It was full of people waiting to get into a room in the ER. So I did manage to get to the desk, and I asked, and they said, there's 11 waiting for a room. We have plenty of beds. We have no nurses. They let go all of the traveling nurses. So we went back, and we ended up spending 2 days in the ER. When we did get a room, we did see beds that were empty, and we did see no nurses in the hallways. This is a very, very bad thing for this area. I'm sure that's not an anomaly for the ER to be that full, and to not have enough nurses to do anything. Please reconsider what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 20, Michael Honeycutt.
Michael Honeycutt, M-I-C-H-A-E-L-H-O-N-E-Y-C-U-T-T. I'm a retired paramedic. I spent the last 28 years in this region, mostly in Sullivan County, some in Unicoi and Greene County. I know and understand the trauma and EMS system in this area rather well. What I want you folks to understand is the decisions that this COPA and Alan Levine and the management team is not just the one transport, the one call. It's a domino effect, folks. These transports aren't taxi cab rides. You don't pull up, throw somebody in, take them to the next hospital and dump them out. It can take hours for that ambulance to be back in service in whatever county it is. While that ambulance is gone, the calls keep coming in. All of the local agencies are at full capacity already. These bad decisions in closing and decreasing trauma and NICU levels is going to affect everybody in this area. While that ambulance is out, the calls come in, there's not an ambulance there to take your loved one to the hospital. We've already heard everyone else say when they get to the hospital, they may be stacked up in the lobby for hours or days waiting to be seen. I charge you folks on this advisory committee to rethink allowing the current administration to continue to make these decisions that will take lives. And that's what it will do, I promise you. I myself have been a member of this level 1 trauma. I sustained a gunshot wound. Had I needed to be transported longer than what it was, I probably wouldn't be able to stand here in front of you to talk to you today. And that's exactly what's going to happen to other folks. If these decisions are unfettered and you folks have the ability to take change, you can save lives. If you don't take this opportunity to change them, people will die. And I just want you to understand that you've been charged with this position as the advisory council, and I want you to take that very, very seriously.
Thank you. Number 21 is Ken, and I cannot read your last name. I think it begins with W. 21. I figured that. Thank you.
I am Dr. Ken Smith. I am your level 1 trauma neurosurgeon for 29 years at Holston Valley. Before that, 7 years at Grady Memorial in Atlanta, one of the largest trauma centers in the United States. And I didn't get to the Chamber of Commerce meeting because I was at the hospital night before last, and yes, the ER was overflowing. There were people in rooms created between rooms. There were not enough nurses on the floor to take care of people. They were, okay, sorry, how about that? Okay, so they were overflowing out into the halls. There were people out in the lobby of various colors that I don't want to mention. So all these things that you've heard are true. The issue that I wish to discuss here is the ballot plan to decrease the total amount of level 1 trauma care in the area. This is based on an idea that you have to be injured to a certain degree to be afforded level 1 trauma care. All of you folks who are going to leave here tonight and go back to Nashville or someplace else can get level 1 care if you have an injury severity of 9.2. That's statewide. What Ballard proposes is to decrease the amount of care here, so you have to be a 15. So anyone between 9.2 and 15 does not get the life-saving benefits of a level 1 trauma center, period. We become second-class citizens in our own state, and we're collateral. And everybody in here that doesn't fly out tonight is potential collateral damage to that. And I'll let Ballot explain why they're trying to do that. I'm not going to put words in their mouth. But a level 3 is not a level 1. I can't do my job at a level 3. We are running full tilt at both level 1s on both neurosurgery services. We can't slow down. The plan will not work, period. And the other issue with this is everyone here is valuable, whether you come from the mountains, the hollers, etc. And to treat people differently from the care that they can get in Nashville or Atlanta or Raleigh or whatever example you want to use is preposterous. And I find it hard to believe that our state and federal agencies haven't looked at this and come to our aid. And I just implore you folks to listen to this, look and see what's happening right in front of our eyes before the switch is pulled. When it's pulled, it's too late. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Number 22, Connie Wells.
Connie Wells, C-O-N-N-I-W-E-L-L-S. Wow, this is greater than the Super Bowl. It was with great interest that I read the Ballard report. And I'm going to kind of stick my comments to that report because a lot's already happened that we can't change, but I think that a lot is coming that we can change. I was struck by the number of committees, work groups, strategic plans, all of that. Like, I lost count after a couple dozen. And I was really interested in seeing a map of how all of these committees are going to work together in order for us to come out with the outcomes that you're looking for. The report also boasted a lot of focus on evidence-based practices, and they're a buzzword in the industry right now, and we all use them and throw them around, and they just kind of justify taking new directions. As you know, many of those evidence-based practices evolved from grants and contracts with the federal government. My opinion is evidence-based practices are a way of many people continuing to get money after their grant's over. Am I against evidence-based practices? Not at all. I think it's a great thing. But I do feel that there's many practices that maybe have been ignored and not looked at, and I didn't see them throughout the report. One of them would be family support providers or peer specialists. They're considered to be the living legend of what families have been through. I've listened to dozens of people here tonight. I've learned so much from them. And you learn from people who have gone through it themselves, the people who have had to walk in your shoes. I don't know how many of you are doctors, but I work mostly in the mental health field, and I will appreciate and take in the considerations of an individual who is my peer, who has been through what I've been through quicker than I will you. I'll even double check what you tell me with a peer specialist. This is an emerging profession. They're certified, they're trained, and they're Medicaid billable. And I didn't see anything about them in the report. You know, a key concern of communities served by Ballard was mental and behavioral health of students and of kids. As you know, 1 in 5 children will struggle with mental illness this year, and 50,000 kids will be expelled from pre-K and daycare centers. I hope but did not see how competent mental health services are going to be boosted or provided by Ballard within the school systems. So here's my story. My granddaughter before Christmas had a mental health crisis at school and tried to cut her wrists. After it was determined that it wasn't an emergency, she was picked up out in front of the school by a police car, paraded past her peers with a policeman. She was taken to an emergency room where she sat for 36 hours before she received any care, one of our Ballard emergency rooms. Finally, as a member of the congressionally appointed Interdepartmental Serious Mental Illness Coordinating Council, I'm pleased with your focus. I was very pleased with your focus on innovative approaches to financing. It was a major area within our 42 recommendations to Congress last year, and I certainly will be watching very closely to see how they unfold in our area. Thanks again for this opportunity, and as usual, on behalf of the 1 in 5, let's make what we have work. Since we started tonight, 2 vets have taken their lives for a lack of mental health services. Several youth have tried it, and 1 in 10 kids in our area have contemplated it. The system's broken, it's not working. The accountability clock has already started, and it's your watch.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Number 23, Ethan Cruz.
Hello, my name is Ethan Cruz, E-T-H-A-N-C-R-U-Z-E, and I'm here. I came up from Granger County in Bean Station, and you might say, why is this important to me? Because I have friends and family that live in this area. I have to come to the VA in Johnson City every week, sometimes multiple days, because I'm a disabled veteran. My mother was also a disabled veteran, and in 1996, she was involved in a car accident. She sustained a spinal cord injury, a very severe spinal cord injury. If she had not had access to a level 1 trauma center, she would not have survived that. As it was, she was with us for another 5 years, mostly thanks to the VA being able to provide her specialized care. If she had not been a veteran, there wouldn't have been the specialized care here for her to take advantage of. Also, once I got out of the military, I was an occupational therapist, and I traveled around the country working at different places. And I got to see what happened every time there seemed to be a merger where the bean counters won out, and the care always went down. I worked at nursing homes where it was myself and the speech therapist performing CPR because there wasn't a nurse available. That's not right. And as I understand the agreement, the COPA agreement, and the disagreements between what's law in Virginia and what's guidelines in Tennessee, it's more and more apparent that this COPA really needs to be started over. Also, my former specialty was as an EOD officer, and the man who talked about the Homeland Security and talked about the access and the roads and trying to get from Kingsport to Johnson City is just asking for a disaster. And I don't think we want to be on the news for that. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, and I really think that once you've listened to everybody's comments here, that you'll come to a good decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 24, Kelty Kearney.
My name is Kelty Kearney, K-E-L-T-I-E, K-E-R-N-E-Y. I'm a retired registered nurse. I know some of you personally on this committee. I've worked with you. And I'm not going to repeat the statistics that you've heard tonight so very clearly from many professionals and many individuals, and I think you'll hear from some more. But I wanted to share with you a little more about the history of Holston Valley and how it came to be. Many of you in this room have family who worked, gave a day's wage, miners, plant workers, to build that facility, to build what it became, through services, through recruiting specialists, through accreditation, through hard work, through the impossible to come where it is today. But Ballard can't take that away because the spirit exists and the foundation is there. But there are some real concerns. There's a major disadvantage, many disadvantages. Access to care, the disadvantage and the costs that have increased. Something that I haven't heard anyone mention yet is, how are we going to recruit specialists, world-class specialists? How are we going to do that? And one of my dear friends who is a specialist said he conveyed that to this committee. and was told, I'm disappointed in you. Well, I'm disappointed in Ballard. The leadership begins at the top, and it needs to begin to stop. There's a compromise there. There's a disadvantage. There's a conflict. Mr. Levine is conflicted. He makes decisions to reduce care, to save himself, to get a big bonus. He is incentivized. I know this factually. So when he can close a service, he can save money, he looks good. He needs to go. Leadership starts at the top. And now, this committee has an opportunity to do something about it. One of you told me that you didn't even know what some of these recommendations were about closing the NICU and downsizing. Think about that. If you don't know, who does know? He needs to go. His leader group needs to go. If history is a predictor of the past, look at the revolving door. Denny DeNavarro, Dr. Saluzzo, Eddie George. How many more do I need to tell you about? And they all got big bonuses, memberships in golf clubs, cars, clothing allowances. Do I need to say more? They're conflicted and compromised. So, lives are at stake here. I can tell you personal experiences one after the other. Talked with one of you about a hypothetical. What if I'm in front of a Holston Medical Group and have an accident? Well, if it's a true trauma, I'm going to Johnson City. And I'm in Holston Valley's back door. It doesn't take a statistician to know there's no logic in that. Just Monday night, there were 2 traumas on Stone Drive. By definition, they would be going to Johnson City again. Last night on the way back from Johnson City, my husband and I almost wrecked at the intersection of 26 and 81. I appeal to you all, please do something. Pray about it, but let me give you another highlight. You can't have a Gideon Bible in the hospital anymore because Ballard says it's an infection control issue. Bah humbug! Something has to stop now. Please do something.
Thank you. Number 25, Sherry Thacker.
Yeah, I'm short. Can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Yeah. All right. My name is Sherrithacker. I'm a mother of 5 children. I'm a nurse for 23 years. I worked at Holston Valley, and it was a highlight for me. But when they talked merger, I started looking for another job because mine wasn't safe. Okay? I work in a job in this area that I will not be merged out of because of Ballard. Amen. I have 4 teenagers / young adults that drive these roads that could wreck at any time. They are all in Southwest Virginia where we live. They go to college at Mountain Empire. Heaven forbid should they have an accident on US 23 because they're going to be 2 hours away from Johnson City. It's a travesty to move this level 1 trauma center from Holston Valley. Yeah, you all talked about consolidation of services, but nowhere in the COPA did you all talk about downsizing. It's wrong. I also have a daughter with Angelman syndrome, which is severe to profound mental retardation, and it's a National Organization of Rare Disease Diagnosis. You can go to angelman.org to learn all the problems that she has, but she's critical. She has neurologic sleep apnea. That means at any moment in time, her brain can tell her to stop breathing. She cannot wear a mask for that. There's no help for it. If I don't have her within 30 minutes while I'm doing CPR, trying to help save her life, her golden hour's gone. There's no way I can get to Johnson City in an hour. I live in Scott County, and I'm lucky that they call the police out to drive the ambulances when these ambulances are tied up at the other hospitals. And that happens all the time. I help the sheriff's office. I know how many times that the sheriff's office has been called and they've got behind the wheel of an ambulance. I was in the ER when they brought a child in from Nicholsville because they couldn't get a rescue squad to get it to the hospital. It took them 2+ hours just to get an ambulance to Nicholsville. By the time that child got to the hospital, you could forget it. It didn't live. And that's already before the merger. Now with us having to go for another long time to Johnson City and be that far away, you're going to kill more people. We can't play God. And I think that's what's going on with this. I want you to know that this is a severe public disadvantage, especially to those of us that live in Southwest Virginia and Kentucky and North Carolina that are served by Holston Valley. It is a direct violation of the COPA, and if you lived in these areas and you had to come here because there's no hospital where you live, you would feel the same way. You need to really consider what you're doing and see the public disadvantage and the violations of the COPA that are already existing. I pray that you will change your mind and take away the COPA that you already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 26, Dr. Mickey Spivey.
Hello, Mickey Spivey, M-I-C-K-E-Y, S-P-I-V-E-Y. Good afternoon. I am an emergency physician that's mostly retired. I've been involved with EMS, fire and rescue for many, many years in our area in pre-hospital care. I'm here today because I believe with all my heart that the plan to downgrade Holston Valley's Level 1 and Bristol Regional's Level 2 trauma centers to Level 3 will significantly disadvantage the majority of the people in the Ballard service area. There are many reasons for this, and many of these have been touched on. But let's just look at capability. There's a vast difference between the capability of a Level 1 trauma center or a Level 2 trauma center and that's provided by a Level 3. Likewise, the requirements of a Level 1 or a Level 2 trauma center is far greater than that of a Level 3. And we've talked about before that a Level 1 requires 28 different specialties to be available 24/7, 365. 365 is important, okay? A Level 2, which is very similar, requires 24 different specialties to be available 24/7, 365. A Level 3, however, only requires 4 specialties to be available 24/7, 365. Ladies and gentlemen, the people in all the Tri-Cities from Johnson City, Kingsport, and Bristol have all enjoyed having all these specialties available for the last 30 years. And one of those reasons are because of the requirements of the Level 1s and Level 2 trauma centers in this region. I am greatly concerned that by downgrading these hospitals in Bristol and Kingsport to Level 3 trauma centers with only 4 specialties required to be available, that many of these specialties that we have today will no longer be available 24/7, 365, and that, ladies and gentlemen, has a great potential to significantly impact the quality of care, not only to trauma patients, but also to medical patients in the entire area. And this is so important to the great majority of those of us in the Ballard service area. Virginia has trauma triage destination guidelines similar to Tennessee. Virginia basically states that certain patients with certain injuries or certain vital signs at the scene are to be directed to the closest Level 1 or Level 2 trauma center. Historically, that has been Holston Valley or it has been Bristol Regional Hospital. Now with a downgrade to Level 3, those patients will no longer be able to go to Holston Valley or Bristol because they don't meet that criteria. Instead, they will now have to be transported to either Johnson City or maybe to Pikeville, Kentucky, to be the closest Level 1 or Level 2 trauma center. Guys, that significantly disadvantages these people. And then Virginia also has a requirement that states that if this transport is greater than 15 minutes, you need to airlift these patients, or airlift these patients. If the Virginia State Police helicopter, which is a free service, is not available, and another helicopter has to provide that transport, that charge to that patient is going to be absolutely huge. And many of these people are already living in depressed economic situations. This further disadvantages these people. One thing that's very important to understand is that the COPA did not pre-approve the consolidation of trauma system. It approved only the consolidation of the Level 1 trauma centers. It did not mention downgrading of Bristol Regional to a Level 3, nor did it mention what should become of Holston Valley if it was not chosen as the Level 1. This is important to remember. And last but not least, I think that it's the best thing that we could possibly do is to try to make sure that Bristol Regional and Holston Valley are maintained at least as a level 2 trauma center. This would significantly reduce the disadvantages to all of these people in the area, but most importantly of all, it would help make sure that everyone in this ballot service area has their best chance of survival if they're faced with a major medical or traumatic event, and that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. They deserve no less. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Number 27, Sabrina Gray.
Good evening. My name's Sabrina Gray, S-A-B-R-I-N-A-G-R-A-Y. I'm the Associate Clinical Leader at Holston Valley Medical Center Cardiovascular Surgery Department. On January 23rd, 2019, I viewed my paycheck expecting to have a 2% annual raise for my performance evaluation. These evaluations are done annually, usually around August or September, and they're based on your work performance throughout the year. So I busted my back all year to make sure that I got that evaluation, and I got a great evaluation, by the way. Instead, I didn't get my bonus onto my hourly rate. I got it as a lump sum bonus, one time only for that year. I've been there for 5 years, and in that 5 years' time, I've missed 2 days of work, one of which I totaled my car and rolled it and could not go to work. I was on my way to work and crawled out of the car. The first thing I did was go to a home because I couldn't find my phone. I called Holston Valley Medical Center operator to make sure that that unit was taken care of for the day before I ever called my family. I'm a very committed person to my job. I don't want to have to leave this area because now I'm being told that of August of 2018, there was a pay grade decrease so that I cannot go any higher than I am. We were not told this during our performance evaluations. They have always been tacked on to the hourly rate, always. So my leader, when I went to her, she did not know anything about a lump sum one-time bonus on my check, and there were others to follow me with her that this had affected. And it appears to be the older people in their 50s that it has affected. Because, of course, we make the most because we're experienced and been there the longest. So she showed me an email that said, as of August of last year, I did not know anything about it. I'm sorry when I did your evaluation, or I would have told you all. So I called HR. They knew nothing about it. HR manager knew nothing about the pay grades being decreased. So I think that's a pretty slap in the face that your HR managers don't know anything about it. So just to make a long story short, I don't want to have to leave this area to make more money because they've handcuffed me. I cannot go any higher at Ballard. And just an example, for an 83-cent an hour raise for the next 10 years, which I plan on working until I retire, accumulates. And had this been put on to my hourly rate, it would have accumulated over the years rather than a small lump sum bonus. I'm losing $101,587.20 in 10 years. So I hope they use that money for good use. I train the new nurses that are coming in. We have travelers coming in this area that are making far more than I'm going to make. So I just can't understand the reasoning of having travelers brought back into the system when they don't want to pay me as a committed person less and going to bring travelers in here and pay them more. So I hope you're listening to my story. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 28 is Crystal Moore.
My name is Crystal Moore, C-R-Y-S-T-A-L-M-O-O-R-E. I've been a registered nurse for 10 years. There are several components to this hospital merger, proposed and implemented changes to care, the COPA, and its oversight that are of extreme concern to the public as it creates a significant disadvantage in the following areas: patient access to health care, increased cost of health care, quality of care received, and employee impact, as you've just heard. Some conflicts of interest that are of concern are as follows. First, the former Tennessee State Health Department Commissioner John Dreisner's wife, Jana Dreisner, has a company called Starfish Health that has a telehealth contract with Ballad Health. In addition, she is listed as the medical director in the psychiatry department for Dickinson County Hospital with Ballad. This was a clear conflict of interest and potential ethics violation during his time in office. Secondly, on January 30th, 2018, one day before the COPA was issued, Senator Rusty Crowe sponsored SB 2048. This legislation eliminates the public transparency the COPA sought to provide. It allows Ballad Health to keep private information obtained through the COPA oversight that includes hospital and facility closures, repurposing of facilities, elimination and relocation of services, and so on and so forth. Ballad's justification for this legislation was to protect themselves from competitors. But Ballad controls an average of 77% of inpatient care in our region and greater than 90% of that care in other areas. So it begs the question, what competition? There is none. This wall of privacy is detrimental to the public and has the potential to lead to serious health issues, including death. For example, Ballad Health closed its cardiac cath lab at Indian Path Medical Center in August of 2018. Yet for several months thereafter, their website still listed it as an open department with a telephone number, and patients who had been previously getting cardiac care at that facility or expected to get it at that facility were going with heart attacks and cardiac-related issues only to find they could not be treated. Thirdly, Senator Rusty Crowe is the Vice President of Shared Health Services, which is a company that provides wound care units to Ballad Health. He has been a paid contracted employee of Mountain States Health Alliance from 2011 to 2017 and is now one with Ballad Health as of 2018, according to his Senate financial disclosure forms. He has since passed 2 additional pieces of legislation that have the potential to monetarily benefit Ballad Health and himself as a result. This is an obvious conflict of interest and potential ethics violation. Some COPA oversight concerns are as follows. Gary Miller over COPA compliance is employed by Ballad Health and therefore would also have a biased position in reporting. And lastly, Larry Fitzgerald, who is the COPA oversight appointed by the state, only works part-time on the 119 pages of requirements and commitments contained in this COPA. The ability of Mr. Fitzgerald to adequately oversee, investigate, and report on the fulfillment of the COPA is in great question, not due to his integrity or desire, but simply because of the lack of time and resources available to him to cover such a vast legal document. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 29 is Jennifer Miller. And I'll remind everybody, if you have written statements that you want to leave with us, please give them to the court reporter. Thank you.
JENNIFER I'm speaking to the devaluing of nursing specialty certification. According to the COPA, Section 3.08, Ballad is to work as quickly as possible to address differences in salary, pay rate, and employee benefit structures. According to Section B, the goal of this undertaking is to achieve a uniform system of compensation and competitiveness in order to attract and retain employees. And Ballad is to spend a minimum of $70 million over a 10-year period to eliminate these differences. This $70 million is in addition to what is currently spent on compensation as of the COPA approval date and is applicable to all levels of employees. Ballad has decreased the value of specialty nursing certifications by changing the legacy Wilmot policy of compensation of $1 an hour additional pay to 2% of the employee's base pay. Ballad adjusted base salaries of current employees so that the current paychecks will not be affected, thus being able to claim that they've not technically violated COPA. However, this has effectively decreased the value of certification for all nurses by anywhere from 40 to 60% across the board, depending on that current nurse's base pay. If you do the math, according to Glassdoor.com, the average salary of an RN in Kingsport is around $50,000 per year, which incidentally is 32% below national average already. The annual pay equals to around $24 per hour. A 2% certification pay is 48 cents. This is over a 50% reduction in certification value. The unintended consequences of this change are a public disadvantage and will negatively affect the opportunity for nurse career development as well as patient safety and health outcomes, because less nurses will become certified, less nurses will recertify, the percentage of certified nurses will decline, thus affecting certain accreditations such as with the Commission on Cancer. Quality of care will decline, patient safety will be compromised, and the ability to recruit new nurses will also decline. These changes to nurse certification are a violation of COPA by implementing changes that will not attract and retain employees, as outlined in Section 3.08b. A violation of the essence of the COPA that addresses compensation differences would be made in addition to in addition to what was currently spent on compensation as of the COPA approval date, and not utilizing the $70 million earmark for this, and by being a public disadvantage by the unintended but very real consequence of compromising patient safety. So why is this so important? Maybe today it's not. I'm an oncology certified nurse, and I'm working on my 10th year. My certification has expanded my knowledge. It's made me accountable to upcoming treatments, new drugs, changes in the world of cancer treatments. Statistically, 1 in 3 men and 1 in 2 women will have a lifetime cancer diagnosis. So I ask you, if you were diagnosed today, would you feel better if your nurse was specially certified in oncology? And would it be worth more than $1? Thank you.
Thank you. Number 30, Elizabeth Foran.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Foran, Elizabethforan. I came to you as a flu patient a year ago, and I'd never been in the hospital for 20 years since I had my children. My husband had been treated at Duke because he was a stage 4 cancer about 20 years ago, so I'd seen what good hospitals can do. I presented you with 2 insurances, very good insurances. You would not accept either one of them. I went to urgent care. I was told to go to the ER because I needed an IV. I ended up with $4,000. And I thought to myself, why are you here in East Tennessee if you don't take 2 major insurance? I was told that your ER is leased out by your physicians, and they do not take either insurances I had. I have Champ Insurance, and I had Cigna 200. I was told at urgent care, if I were to have gone to Sycamore Shoals, it would have been paid for. But Ballard Health owns Sycamore Shoals. I don't understand. Why are you in East Tennessee if you do not accept the insurances that the majority of the people here have? Duke Medical Center, I have seen the very best, but they are wonderful to their very least. Why do you play a power play for our area and deliver such insignificant health care? Period. It makes me sick as a resident of this area that you would power play us and get up here and then disappoint all of us. Whether you like us or not, we are going to grow, and maybe you are not to grow with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 31, Dr. William Busselmeyer.
My name is William Busselmeyer. That's B as in Bravo, U-S-E-L-M-E-I-E-R. I'm a primary care physician in Kingsport, Tennessee. I am part of an interprofessional 25-physician practice that has been serving patients from at least 8 counties in Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia for 44 years. We also provide medical care to patients of all ages admitted at Holston Valley Medical Center. My partners have authorized me to speak on their behalf at this meeting. Over the last several months, we have experienced growing concerns for the ongoing safety of our patients due to Ballad Health's proposal to remove key services from Holston Valley Medical Center. The lack of sufficient input from community physicians in creating this plan is deeply concerning, and we are fearful that the proposed changes will significantly disadvantage our patients. However, after reviewing Ballad Health System's annual report, we see a major opportunity to ensure our patients continue to have access to vital inpatient services and help ensure that Ballad Health's long-term financial and strategic goals are met. In Greene County, Tennessee, there exist 2 hospitals. Formerly competitors, Ballad Health has transformed their operations such that they now function as one hospital with 2 campuses. One hospital will focus its services on advanced outpatient and non-acute inpatient care, while the other hospital will focus on providing acute inpatient services. My colleagues and I would actually like to praise Ballad Health for implementing this forward-thinking, systematic approach that cooperatively improves the medical care of patients in Greene County. We think a similar approach could be effectively used in Kingsport, where another 2 formerly competitor hospitals are located. The facilities are Indian Path Community Hospital and Holston Valley Medical Center. In the Greene County model, Indian Path would best serve as the advanced outpatient, non-acute inpatient care facility, and Holston Valley as the provider of acute inpatient services. Specifically, we think Holston Valley should retain the ability to provide inpatient services to children and adults, labor and delivery services to our pregnant patients, and at least as well as a level 2 NICU. Additionally, a number of problems in Kingsport could be solved if Indian Path Community Hospital were to focus on advanced outpatient services. Problems such as nursing staff shortages, prolonged patient hospitalizations, bed diversions, and subspecialist unavailability could all be improved by focusing services in the one hospital, 2 campuses model. Ballad Health has the potential to dramatically improve the health care of our region. We seek the opportunity to inform Ballad Health on how to accomplish this and partner with them to better care for our patients. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Busselmeyer. Number 32, Deronda Bearden.
Hello, my name is Deronda Bearden, D-E-R-H-O-N-D-A, Bearden, B-E-A-R-D-E-N. I'm a nurse at Holston Valley. I was a candy striper there in my high school days. I got a scholarship from their auxiliary to go to nursing school, and I graduated from ETSU in 1982. And so I started out in their special care nursery there in 1982. It was far from a level 1 then, but we had the need and the want to learn. I watched the nursery grow as the nurses became more experienced. We took care of more babies then, sicker babies as it grew, as the doctors became more specialized. We got neonatologists here. I watched that unit grow, so I feel a special warm feeling for the nursery in the level of care that the neonatologists have given there. I also can speak from the experience of a grandmother. I have 4-year-old twin granddaughters that their mother was a high-risk patient there for a month before she delivered. I would have hated to have thought that we would have had to have went to Johnson City, driving there several times a day to see her and to attend to her. And so when it came time that she needed to be C-sectioned for her hypertension, the babies were about 36 weeks. They were taken care of by Dr. Powers, Dr. Lale, Dr. Martin in our neonatal intensive care nursery. As a proud nurse, I was able to go down there and participate in their care. They were there for 13 days. I consider it a definite advantage for me to be able to go in my community hospital, because like I said, I was a candy striper there. I've been a nurse, counting the time that I was an LPN, I've been a nurse almost 40 years. What I'm doing now, I help breastfeeding babies. I'm a lactation nurse at Holston Valley. I work with those NAS babies in the neonatal intensive care, and it's definitely a bonus to have those the parents to be able to be that close to their babies. These are moms that are at risk for bonding issues. They need to be able to be close to their babies to breastfeed. Most of those babies are breastfeeding every 3 hours. They certainly don't have time to make a trek back to Southwest Virginia to home, to see other children or whatever, so it's a definite advantage. The hospital also has and I call it a luxury, we have several hospitality rooms that those mothers can board in free of charge. So why would you mess up a good system? Alan Levine, in the beginning, he talked about the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations that all the babies be at a level, the perinatal designated center in Johnson City. He was quoting from old American Academy of Pediatric recommendations. That's not the most current ones that says that babies can be taken care of in places other than the designated perinatal center, and we have been doing that for 30 years, and I hope that you all will have the foresight to let us continue doing what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 33, Kevin Mitchell.
Kevin Mitchell, Kevin Mitchell. First off, I want to thank y'all for serving on that council. And it's my sincere hope that you will hear the voices, not just hear the voices, but listen to the voices, the courageous voices of the people that have spoken and those who are here in the audience, because this is going to affect them. As you heard Dr. Spivey, my understanding of the provisions in the COPA was for a consolidation of level 1 services. It didn't specify a downgrade, especially a downgrade to a level 3. Now, that represents a serious public disadvantage to emergency medical care. More pointedly, it represents a serious threat to life and survivability. Now, I'm going to read you some quick figures just so you understand about traumatic injuries in our rural area. They have been increasing, and you can find this information on the Tennessee Department of Health website. If you go to the Trauma Care Advisory Council, you can see some of the data they have, and this is where I pull that from. In 2014, and this is from their 2015 report, we saw, again, I'm not going to give you the Tennessee figures, but the surrounding counties. We saw 954 patients from Kentucky, 1,364 from Virginia. The next year, 1,258 patients and 1,341 from Virginia. And the latest data that they have on their website is 1,462 patients seen in trauma centers and from Virginia, 1,340 from Kentucky. Now, in the valleys, in Holston Valley service area, there are really 14 counties. There are more. This is not an inclusive list. You've got Washington County, yes, Washington County, Tennessee, Sullivan, Hancock, Hawkins, Greene counties in Tennessee, Bell counties, Harlan County, Knox County, Letcher counties in Kentucky, and Lee, Wise, Scott, Washington, and Tazewell counties in Virginia. Now, why that is important is that you heard someone mention the golden hour. The golden hour basically says that the sooner we can get those patients to definitive care that have life-threatening injuries, the higher chance of survivability that they have. Now, I'm going to paint you a scenario, and this is my hometown, my town in Kingsport. If we run a vehicle accident in Kingsport, if it's a bad accident that you see those life-threatening injuries, a complex extrication can take, on a conservative estimate, 30 to 45 minutes. Now, we get that patient out of that vehicle and we transport them to Holston Valley. We can usually be in any part of the city to Holston Valley in 7 to 10 minutes. That increases survivability. If we have to transport those patients another 30 miles, 22 miles, 23 miles to Johnson City, those patients are probably not going to survive their injuries. So I want you to take in account to why the state of Tennessee saw fit to have a trauma center level 1 in Kingsport at Holston Valley and then in Johnson City. It's because the nature of our topography, our geography, the weather is we require that. And if you take that away from Kingsport, it is definitely going to be a public disadvantage to healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 34 is Annette Gentry.
Hello, thank you for serving on this board. My aspect is from a patient standpoint. On December 26th of 2018, I was admitted to a local ER. There wasn't a neuro team there, so they were transferring me to Johnson City Medical Center. I had symptoms and signs of a stroke. I had to wait in the ER for over 26 hours to be transported to Johnson City Medical Center. 26 hours, a patient with stroke symptoms. Does that make any sense? They said they didn't have enough beds, but when they got me over there, there was a whole wing that was completely empty. Nobody. I'll bet there was 50 beds down through there. Nobody in there whatsoever. One whole wing on the stroke floor. Keep in mind, this entire time, my insurance was being billed for me being there. This is a huge disadvantage to the public here. It's unacceptable. When I finally got to Johnson City Medical Center, one entire wing was empty. They did a lumbar puncture. They found out that I had meningitis, which is very serious. I could have died before I even got over to Johnson City Medical Center. They finally got me on treatment, and it could have been very critical for me because I had chemotherapy at one time for breast cancer, so my immune system is already compromised. I could have died. I don't know that anybody, I know the doctors would have cared, but I don't know that anybody else would have that's over there. The cost of the delay in treatment and the transferring me to Johnson City Medical Center is actually what drives up the cost of insurance. This is directly a disadvantage to the public. They put a midline in my arm in addition to my IV that I already had, an additional cost billed to my insurance. I received discharge orders with home health, which would have been cheaper than a hospital stay, right? They were to come out once a day for 4 days and give me an IV infusion of antibiotics to get rid of this. I was advised by the Johnson City Medical Center nurses that they had put in for the orders for home health for me to go home with for 4 days. I waited and waited and waited. I kept asking. They kept saying, we put in orders, we put in orders. We've called. Your insurance just hasn't got back with us. I called my insurance. They said, we've never had a request for you to have home health. My insurance. Now, they said they've done it. I was supposed to went home 4 days. I got charged for being in the hospital when I shouldn't have been. No need whatsoever. I was discharged, and I was met at home with a hospital bill that was already there waiting for me for over $35,000 for 13 days. This is unacceptable. It's ridiculous. It's definitely a public disadvantage. Surviving cancer was easy. It's this community and everybody here surviving Allen Levine and Ballard Health that I'm worried about. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 35, Alan Lark.
My name is Alan Lark, A-L-L-E-N-L-A-R-K. I'd like to start off with thanking the board for being here. I'd like to introduce this group here. From wall to wall, you've got residents, you've got taxpayers, you've got voters, you've got patients, you've got survivors. Now, from wall to wall, you've got a room full of victims. Why are they victims? Their health care has been taken from them. They have no input. When they had input, nobody wanted to hear it. It didn't matter. We have contacted our local state and federal elected officials. They don't even want to return emails. They don't even want to talk to us. Go look at their campaign contributions. They've all been paid off by Ballard and their leadership. That's not what I'm making up. It's a public record. They've been bought. The people we voted into office now wear price tags on their uniforms or their suits. So we have no representation other than this board. Moving on. I'm a 1989 graduate of Holston Valley's Trauma Center from a very bad car wreck and 8 inches of snow. I wasn't flying that day, and I wouldn't have made it to the med center. What we've got here is a conflict in terminology. We keep hearing the word COPA. You all hear it as Certificate of Public Advantage. What these people have been presented is no public advantage whatsoever. What they've been presented, hang on, you're killing my time. What they've been presented was a certificate of personal advantage. It's personal advantage. How do I get that? And this is all in my opinion, but I think everybody will agree. Why is it personal advantage? Allen Levine at Kingsport's Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting presented Ballard's finances for the first year in business, and they made double or triple digits in the millions of dollars profit the first year. So business is good, okay? He proved that. While business is good, we're turning the business down from the inside. Everybody in this room that works at one of these hospitals should be happy to go to work, not worried about what they're going to do with their house because they can't accept the pay they're paying them. Give these people a freaking wage they can live on. It's ridiculous. The money's there, but because my certificate of personal advantage, I'm taking from them so it goes in my pocket on the end. Now, they have also presented a regionalized trauma plan. Great ideal. It sounds fabulous. We're going to cut out. We're going to have one level 1 trauma center because Memphis, Nashville, and Chattanooga only has one trauma center. Why do we need more than one? Go to Erlanger, Nashville, or Memphis and look at their trauma center, okay? You people are no dumber than these people are. You don't compare a 1-lane gravel road to a 12-lane interstate, okay? I personally visited Erlanger ER, and a friend of mine gave me a tour of their ER and their trauma center. They have more capabilities in that one facility than we have in the Tri-Cities. That's why we need 3 trauma centers, is we're spread out. You've never heard Ballard say, okay, we're going to have the capabilities in Johnson City to land 5 helicopters at once and all the ground ambulances that can roll in here, and we're going to have the staff on site or on call to take care of you. No, they're going to have one doctor. This area serves 3 states. Patients come in here from 3 states: Kentucky, Virginia, and Tennessee. Okay, so now, and I keep this in mind, and I don't mean this in any respect. You all have not left this area yet. Anybody in this room could have an accident leaving here. Do you want to get to the hospital and say, well, we're waiting until they get free. You're in a queue right now. You're number 3. I know you're bleeding to death, but you're just going to have to wait. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. You all are the only ones that can help us in any way. Nobody wants to help us. If you look at geographically, Tennessee stops in Knoxville, Virginia stops at Roanoke, the part in the middle nobody cares nothing about. So this board is the only one that can do anything to help us because nobody else cares. Their pockets already been padded. It's ridiculous that and I'll assure you, every one of these people had something better to do tonight, and this is only a small sample of what could be here to recognize their voice. Yeah, most of them are scared. They have been threatened. If you speak out, if you say anything, we don't need you no more. Yeah, some have already been fired for speaking out, folks. Where's this for us? I hate to say this, I don't want to do no personal attacks, but when you're from Florida and you come up here to make millions of dollars, chances are you're probably going back to Florida with more millions.
Thank you,
I didn't
Mr.
call out
Lark.
no names, but you can put the puzzle together.
Thank you, Mr. Lark, very much.
Thank you.
Do you have written comments? Number 36, Donald Christian.
My name is Donald, D-O-N-A-L-D, Christian, C-H-R-I-S-T-I-A-N. I just got a few comments. I'll be brief. My name is Donald Christian. I'm from Blumpville. I'm highly concerned about the only trauma center being in Johnson City. I'm with all the other patients who have chronic life-threatening diseases. They need access to care and quick care. I have cardiovascular disease, and I also am at risk of bleeding out without emergency bypass during a heart cath. So what if I'm being stabilized at a level 3 trauma center and I start to bleed out? There's not going to be the people on call to do that open heart surgery for me. So it's ridiculous to ask me to have 2 heart caths, one in Bristol to stabilize me, and then one in Johnson City to actually put in a stent. And it would be the same with people with lung diseases and other things. Anybody with chronic illness needs access to immediate care. I had my heart attack pre-merger, 2011. It took me an hour to get an ambulance. Praise the Lord for our EMTs, but they're overworked. And it took me an hour to get an ambulance. If we're shipping everybody to Johnson City, that could be 2 hours. Time is tissue, especially when you're having a heart attack or stroke. Time is tissue. And it's ridiculous to expect us to wait on ambulances because the only trauma center is in Johnson City, so your ambulances are tied up and you have to wait for another city to send you an ambulance. My ambulance came from Bluff City, and I live 4 miles from Sutherland County EMS, but they're overworked. And you can't expect them to be overworked even more. And when it comes to NICUs, I believe they need to be in all 3 hospitals. You never know when something's going to go wrong in labor. So these infants deserve a chance. A NICU needs to be in every hospital, and Bristol should at least be level 2, if not level 1. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank all of you. That's all we have who have signed up. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. I don't know.
I just wanted to, my name is Kristen Smith, Kristinsmith, and I just wanted to comment kind of on behalf of the employees, you know, not just doctors and nurses, but there's respiratory therapists, there's radiology, there's lab personnel, I'm a contract employee through Quest Diagnostics. Quest has owned the former Wellmont Hospital labs. And in January, I was told all of us in the hospital labs were the ones running troponins to see if somebody had a heart attack. We're the ones giving the doctors the results so that they can treat their patients. I was told in January, or that beginning in January, I could either lose my vacation time or I could lose my premium pay, which is what we get for working evening or nights, 7 on, 7 off shifts, which is 7 10-hour shifts in a row. I couldn't afford to take that pay cut, so I had to lose my vacation time. Now, I found out today that we are no longer going to be employed by Quest. We're going to be employed by Ballad. And I know from other Quest employees that were taken over by Ballad earlier that work at like Southwest Virginia Cancer Center and the clinics, they lost, their hourly pay was cut, and they also had changes to their benefits. Right now, you know, I get a 10% shift differential, I get a 10% weekend differential. I'm expecting that. I don't think I'm going to keep getting that. And so I've already lost, just by losing my vacation time this year, that equals about $7,000 I'm going to lose in benefits. And now I expect to lose probably more in income just this year. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we have one more. Yes, ma'am. Give us your comments in writing, please. Thank you.
Melissa Ladd, L-A-D-D. Hello, and thank you for listening to me. I was born with cerebral palsy in 1966. I was adopted in Greenville, Tennessee. I was placed for adoption, closed adoption. Born with the cerebral palsy, undoubtedly I was treated by the Shriners from the time I was first diagnosed, about age 2, to up to 18 years old, reported to Greenville, South Carolina. I was also diagnosed in the year 2000 with MPGN, which is a kidney disease there is no cure for. And in my situation, I started being treated in 2000 by my nephrologist, who is in Johnson City, Tennessee. I fought kidney disease from the time I was diagnosed up until this stage, and I'm still fighting it. The good Lord gave me the opportunity to have a kidney transplant. I was called from UT Hospital on Christmas Day of last year, and I'm a survivor because of a donor. But although I'm from Greenville, Tennessee, there were a lot of issues that took place. I was treated in Johnson City Medical Center at first to start my dialysis. The doctor who cut on my arm to prepare me for dialysis, unfortunately, was not even a cardiologist. He was a physician who was brought in from a surgical unit representing Johnson City. I was there for 26 days. I was sent home after the first week with my arm as blue as the towel on that table. They readmitted me, recut my arm. I've had 7 surgeries from 2015 to 2017 before transplant in 2017. I did 2 years of dialysis through DaVita in Greenville, Tennessee, with a wonderful nephrologist that practices on his own in Johnson City. But I had a lot of disadvantages because of my cerebral palsy, because of my kidney disease, and all the surgeries that I had. It caused me to have 4 CVCs in my heart and have to go from dialysis center to UT because my left arm had got infected. I made that decision to go on my own because of the lack and the disadvantage of the care I was receiving in Johnson City. I appreciate that you would listen to me, and I speak for all dialysis patients. There are quite a few here, quite a few being treated, especially in Greenville. There are 2 centers that stay full. I was having dialysis 3 times a week, 4 hours a day for 2 years before I got my call. People die because they don't get kidneys and have transplants. And I was very close. My kidney function was only down to 4. And I am here speaking on behalf of Greenville. We are in dire need of better care. If those hospitals in Greenville wind up closing because of what Ballard Health has chose to do or proposed to do, we stand to lose our community's health more than what it is now, and we're already losing. So I ask that you seriously consider this information that I have given you on my own to help rectify what has been done and stop Ballard, or at least change what is taking place, because it is a disadvantage. And I very well could have been one of the deaths. But thank the Lord, and better hospitals further away, which was a disadvantage. I used NetTrans to get there the whole time. No support team. The entire time that I was being treated, from the time I started prior to my surgeries, I've had no support team. I called the state. Oh, we can't help you. I finally got some home health set up after I gained sepsis in February after transplant. It was because there was a cyst in my back that went septic. I spent 21 days in a nursing home here in Greenville, was released, and I've been diagnosed with CMV, so I'm still fighting. And I'm going to keep on fighting. And I appreciate you recognizing me to speak, but please stop some of the disadvantages that are taking place. We need help here.
Thank you, Ms.
We needed help before he came.
Thank you. I think that's all. Yes, ma'am. One more.
My name is Julia Wallace, JuliaWallace. I have family members that live in Southwest Virginia. And we've had a trauma. My uncle was hit by a tree a few years ago. And when the EMT person was saying, you have to get out of the holler, you really do. The first thing you don't do is call 911, because sometimes your phones don't work, as WJHL has reported here recently. There's no cell service there. You load people up into the back of pickup trucks. You get someone to call at the home place, because these farms are acres. They're hundreds of acres. You may be cutting trees at the sawmill. You might be 10, 15 minutes from the closest phone. You load these people up, you put them on the back of a truck, you drive to Hemet Elementary. Chopper picks you up. Holston Valley was on diversion, so my uncle went to Bristol. Multiple broken bones, internal injury. And a person would be downgraded to a level 3, and there was no backup for a level 1 trauma, and I got concerned of it.
couldn't find it on the website. I got an email back from Judy Connect. Advisory Council's next working meeting has not yet been set. When the date is posted, we will send you an email with that information. And this was sent on February 4th, Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else to speak?
Hello, my name is Lori Hamilton Dykes. I am Lori, L-O-R-I, Hamilton, Hamilton, Dykes, D-Y-K-E-S. I'm a lifelong resident of Sullivan County and Washington County. I grew up in Sullivan County for the first 24 years of my life. I lived 13 years in Carter County, and I have now lived 20 years in Gray, Washington County. I have had numerous family members who have been treated at Bristol as well as myself. I have had numerous family members in Johnson City as well as myself. And I have numerous family members who have been treated in Kingsport. I don't recall myself being treated there, other than maybe at Indian Path. I take that back, not at Holston Valley. I myself, at age 37, in the year 2000, survived a life-threatening illness. Well, not an illness, a life-threatening trauma, I suppose you would call it, from a pregnancy. I had something very rare that only happens to 1 in 3 million women who get pregnant, and I survived it, and only they tell me only 1 in 3 million people who have happened to me, what happened to me, it only happens to 1 in 3 million, and only 1% survive. I survived it. And I was at Bristol, and they had to move me from one unit to another because they didn't have me in the proper surgery unit. As a result, I've had lots of problems from that because I had internal bleeding that was left in my abdomen that took the doctors here 8 years to figure out what was wrong with me. I could go on and on about what I've been through with all that, but let's just get back to what's really important here. I also had a friend recently, last February, who survived in Bristol from a heart attack. She was in the ER when it happened because her mother had just passed away 30 minutes prior to that from a heart attack herself. She was 55 years old, and she was in Bristol Hospital, and they did the utmost best they could possibly do for her. They told her they told us as we waited, that she probably wouldn't even be able to speak again, possibly, that she would have all kinds of problems. They took her body down into I don't know, I'm not really familiar with all the medical terminology, but they took her body down in below 80 degrees or whatever. They had all that available to her at Bristol. Had she not been in Bristol, she ended up with 7 stents. She would not be here today. She's here today. Not only is she here today, she works every day. She still has all of her mind and memory. They didn't think she would ever even be able to speak, possibly, is what they told the family. I'm very concerned if we do what we're talking about, that we will not have the capabilities to save her life. She would be there in the next year or so, that had happened, she wouldn't be able to probably be alive. She spent about roughly, I think, around 20 days in Bristol, and then they transferred her to Johnson City due to some issues that she had with her, I think, gastro issues. They felt like they couldn't do what they needed to in Bristol. And so they sent her to Johnson City, which they did great things for her there too. But what I'm saying is it took the combination of the two facilities to save her life and to continue to do what they needed to do. Bristol has amazing equipment that is not available in most places, such as I'm actually supposed to be going for not a colonoscopy, but not a colonoscopy, but a colonography. Bristol's the only one who has that equipment to do that. Of course, I need to have that done. And the fiasco I went through just this past week with the scheduling of that and how that goes and what I was supposed to do was unbelievably unacceptable. At this time, I'm not going to stop because people aren't really waiting. You can hold up your signs all day. I am, you know, look, if there's somebody else waiting, I'll get off here, but don't interrupt me. I'm going to talk for another minute. Basically, what I'd like to say is this. If any of you all have been, surely you have, to Johnson City Medical Center, my biggest concern there is getting in and out of that hospital. They don't have enough parking spaces now for the people that they accommodate. They don't have proper ways to get in and out of that hospital. Washington County as a whole is probably absolutely the worst city I've ever been in my life to navigate. Kingsport's not like that. They fixed it all around Holston Valley really nice to where you can get in and out of there. Indian Path's not like that. They've made it really nice. Sycamore Shoals is not like that. But we're going to take all of our trauma people over there to where they have to not only have to be over there and be further away from home, but we don't even have a cart that can pick you up and take your family in there. We're going to make you walk possibly for a mile more to get into the hospital. I could go on about the things and the reasons why this is not a good thing. I've had my mother-in-law died in a house fire in 2008 in Kingsport. My father-in-law was flown out because he was burned to the burn unit in Winston-Salem. I've sat in Holston Valley while all that happened. They did a good job with all that. I've been through numerous things and seen numerous hospitals in this area. All three of them saved people in my family, including the Johnson City Medical Center. But I don't think that we can stop what we're doing currently, because if we do, we're going to lose lots and lots of lives at all three facilities. And I just think it's an absolute travesty as what's going on in this area, not only for the hospitals and the situation with that, but with jobs and pay and all that. It's time we did something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Danny. Just so you know what the next, one more.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
3 minutes,
yes,
please.
I promise. I promise. You hold your sign up, I'll stop. Amber Riley, A-M-B-E-R-R-I-L-E-Y. I've been a licensed healthcare professional for over 10 years. All of my service has been, minus 6 months, has been served within Southwest Virginia, over in real Southwest Virginia. We're talking Big Stone, Norton, that area. We are very disadvantaged in that area. We have no hospitals. You know, if you want to get good care, you had to go to Holston Valley. This was pre-merger. Now our health care is questionable even then. My poor little 77-year-old grandmother was sent out of one of our local facilities with a hemoglobin of 7.7, and if me and my mother as nurses had not had the knowledge to ask for her laboratory work, we would have never known that because it was not in her discharge paperwork. Also, I had a daughter. She was 12 months old at the time, was sent home. We ended up in Niswangers just because I decided to drive there. We were sent home from a local facility with a heart rate of 212. She could have died very easily. But more recently, let me share this. Yesterday, my 12-year-old had to have a procedure at Johnson City Medical Center. It was an outpatient procedure, very simple. Didn't think to turn my recorder on because I would have, because, you know, it's just normal check-in, wouldn't have thought anything about it. We go to check in. I have my infant with me. I have my 12-year-old with me. We're doing all this paperwork. She says to me, when they call her, she will go back alone. You will be left in the lobby while they get her settled in, and then you will be permitted to be with your daughter. My daughter, on the outside, looks 12, very normal looking. She is not emotionally 12 years old, okay? She is not. And I was told I could not go be with her. Well, I raised all kinds of Cain, and needless to say, Mama went back with her. Well, thank goodness Mama did, because they instructed her on how to put her gown on. She could not do it. She had to have my assistance. Otherwise, it would have been a male aide that was assisting my 12-year-old daughter putting her gown on. Furthermore, they thought they had this little board game sitting on her bedside to ease her nerves, and she's so excited about this board game, and she wants to open it. She wants to explore it like a normal child. She opens the board game, and I take it from her to look to see what is in there, and it's a card. And Miss Connect, let me tell you what that card said, one of the game cards. Would you rather lay in bed with someone naked or be spit on? Yes. and the game was easily labeled for an adult. And that is the center that you want to make our level 1 trauma center. And their nurses and their staff are not even capable of reading the outside of a game board box to give to their children to ease their nerves. In addition to that, you also, the same nurse, did not recap a needle, took a needle, numbed her hand, missed the IV site, so we're going to stick an IV here. Uncapped needle on the bed, unsterile. I look over at my infant to check on her because she's making noise. Look back, she's sticking the same needle in my child's arm. Infection waiting to happen. There are so many things that could be reported to JCO in this situation, and you all could lose your joint credit accommodation, not just your level 1 trauma center, but your accreditation. And then where will your Medicare and your Medicaid come from?
Thank you. Thank you. Are we done? One more?
One more. All right.
Okay. 3 minutes. Spell your name.
Tyler Finocchio, Tyler Finocchio. I'm actually a critical care pharmacist working at Holston Valley Medical Center in the ER. Okay. I currently work as a critical care pharmacist in the Holston Valley emergency room, and I've seen a lot of change in the past couple months. I actually used to work there as a resident, went away, specialized in critical care, and then I've since come back to Ballard. And since coming back, I have seen just tragedy in the emergency room department. I've seen nurses having to take more patients than they're physically able to, with one patient coding in one room, leaving the other patients to go unattended, which of course leads to upset patients and decreasing quality of care. Taking away the trauma services would be detrimental to this hospital and this region. I came back to Ballard because this is my hometown. Kingsport is home to me. These people are my people. My family is here. But unfortunately now I will be leaving Ballard Health for a new job. I see physicians leaving every day. I see nurses leaving every day. I'm leaving, and I can't leave and have a clear conscience without trying to beseech you to not let this continue to happen. Even just a couple days ago, we had a patient come into our ER. Holston Valley was on diversion. We had about a 6-hour wait time. She waited about 1 hour before she told the receptionist that she would just rather go die at home. Well, 4 hours later, EMS brought her in full cardiac arrest. And she has now since passed away. But I cannot let that kind of care go on, because even though I will be leaving this area, my family is still here. And if they have to go to a Ballard facility, I have even spoken with my own mother that I do not want her going to a Ballard facility. If heaven forbid something tragic were to happen, that I do not feel that my family or anyone in this region would be getting the quality of care that they deserve. And I just beseech you all to have a conscience and to, if not modify, please revoke this COPA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next steps, we will be posting the transcript from here. We're hearing a lot of the same types of stories. If you have something new, we would really appreciate it.
I just wanted to add one thing to what I said. I, like he, feels like that I need to stand up in defense of my coworkers who do not feel the freedom to express their opinions or whatever. I worked on childbirth center at Indian Path for 16 years, and those girls they are too afraid to speak up. They were told back mid-November if they got an email. And I'm not sure, Monty McLaurin, it may have come from him. I don't have a copy of it. But a former coworker of mine, said that they got an email that said if they were mixed up in the mess with Danny Cook, that they were not to get mixed up with that. So even though I know all of them have opinions but they're deathly afraid for their job, and I hope I still have a job tomorrow. I probably have jeopardized my job, and I need to work. I'm 59. I need to work about 6 more years before retirement, but I feel like I need to speak up for my coworkers who are too afraid to voice their opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take one more. This gentleman here, sir, say your name and spell it, please, for our court report.
My name is Ron Allgood, Allgood. I'm not here to trash ballot. The only thing I have to say about ballot, and as far as the COPA is concerned, is that they've gone about this whole procedure the wrong way. They got input from our local government officials. I had a heart attack in the emergency room at Holston Valley. I wouldn't have made it to Johnson City at that time. I feel like that all of our, not all of our, but most of our government officials, our local elected officials, city councils, even the Chamber of Commerce, have sold these people out. And all that we're asking is that you don't do the same thing. We plead to you, we beg to you, don't sell us out.
Thank you, sir. So the next steps, and thank you all for your patience. So the next step, the transcript will be made by our court reporter, Ms. Todd. Thank you so much for your work. She's from Kingsport. The local advisory council will prepare its report, and then that will be posted on our website. You may continue to submit any comments to us if you would like to until we're putting the deadline at Monday the 11th at close of business, but please feel free to send us any more information if you want to. We've got the website copa.advisory-council@tn.gov, but Danny can get it to you, I'm sure, if you need it. And Chairman, did...
I know that people have thought me to be a little controversial. And here's what I just need you to understand. This is not about tearing down ballot. This is not about bashing folks. I know that I've made some people mad by calling them out, but we needed your attention. I needed your attention, and the people in this room needed your attention. You didn't have public input before because people didn't know. We know now, and we're speaking out. This is not about tearing anybody down. I just need you all to understand that that's the space that I come from. I've told Jeff that. I've told the state representatives that. You tell me how I can help, and I will bring people to the table. I will come to the table, and we will cooperate, and we will make solutions. Solutions don't have to be one way. I just need y'all to understand that this is an open room, an open line of communication, and I'm here to bring about a solution, okay, not just problems. So I just need y'all to hear that from my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. And Mr. Chairman, I think, Mr. Chairman, if you want to officially close this public hearing. The local advisory council has 30 days to get its report done, so there's a lot of work that's going to be done. They have to review the ballot annual report and all of your input. So and that, pardon? It'll be posted within about a month? Yes. Okay. Yes, sir.
In your report, so in case we've missed something, in your report, since it's a certificate of public advantage, would you please put in your report what the advantage is in this merger? Because nobody else has seen this thing.
Thank you for that comment. There is it's a detailed process, and a lot of you have read the terms of certification that we go through for assessing how things are going, but everything that you all have said tonight will be put into the report. Either, I don't know if we're going to do everything verbatim or just summarize it, but it will be in there, and we will work hard to make sure it's out there. And if there's any problem that you all have with it, we want your comments back on that, please. One last question. I have not spoken with them. Okay. Thank you, and the public hearing is closed.